Welcome to the Strategy and Leadership Podcast, the podcast that brings you practical advice, lessons, and stories from senior leaders and thought leaders from around the world. The Strategy and Leadership Podcast is brought to you by SME Strategy, working with organizations around the world to create and implement their strategic plans. To learn more, visit SMEstrategy.net. And now, your host, Anthony Taylor.
Hey there, folks. Welcome to today's episode of the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. My guest today, Paul Epstein, who's a former NFL and NBA executive, two-time best-selling author, just an awesome dude. Paul, what's happening today? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Anthony, fired up to be here.
I'm super excited. I love to see what's behind you, all of those accolades, your LinkedIn, your sales career. It's all about winning. I love the idea of just being on offense and making better decisions faster. And I think that in these kind of, I hate the word uncertain times, but just the way the world is going right now, you got to move, you got to win, and you definitely have to win Monday. But why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we can go from there in the questions.
Absolutely. So a lot of the world will know me for the 15-year NFL and NBA career. And at 5'9" and about $170, unless I can kick the ball, I'm sorry to disappoint, but I was not the player. However, from an entry to an executive level, it was a pretty crazy wild ride. It was 3 NBA teams. It was the NFL league office, broke some all-time Super Bowl revenue records, opened up Levi's Stadium with the 49ers. So crushing billion-dollar goals, billion-dollar campaigns. And even back to my NBA days, there were things like selling the unsellable. And it was the LA Clippers in a day where Kobe and Shaq were on the other side of the hallway. And everybody, all my friends and family are like, dude, why don't you just go work for the purple and gold? And, you know, when you're in sales, there's a little bit of this underdog scrap and fight. And I know we have a lot of practitioners and leaders and folks that are in the trenches that are listening in. And that's really where I cut my teeth. It happened to be in a very sexy industry, but at the end of the day, my entry-level job was picking up a phone 200 times, just like many other industries that are more in the B2C space. But then as I graduate to more senior roles, it became more of a B2B game. So who makes the call to Levi's to become Levi's Stadium? Who's selling Silicon Valley for all the premium luxury boxes? And so a lot of that was more from the sales trenches, but really the part of business and why I do what I do today is it was always the people side. It was always the culture side. That's the part that got me out of bed. And the more that strategy started to become a part of the job, I kept on coming back to the coaching roles that I had. So if you look at my website at paulepsteinspeaks.com, you'll see that I was known as the why coach of the San Francisco 49ers. So after I had my own life-changing retreat back in, let's call it 2016, I found my why, found my values. It was the first time that I ever got to call a timeout from just climbing a ladder. I stopped asking myself, why am I climbing this ladder? Is it still the right ladder? Is it leaning against the right wall? But this retreat reshifted my entire perspective. And once I kind of had that self-discovery moment, I was like, dude, this is really cool. Like I am operating at a way more clear capacity. I am more confident than I've ever been. I've never had more conviction in my actions. I'm now making more courageous decisions and choices. But all of that was a byproduct of figuring out who I am on the inside. And then I just started to pay it forward and coach that out to others. And I started doing it inside of the 49ers, but then I realized the greater impact was beyond the four walls, not only of the 49ers, but of the sports industry. And ever since then, I've been training and coaching and consulting with Fortune hundreds and high growth founders and pro athletes and Olympians and you name it. And now I'm just blazing a trail as a keynote speaker, a best-selling author, and I'm a founder of a massive community called Win Monday, which is also the name of my podcast. So I'll pause there to catch my breath, but that is a bit about where I've been and a little bit more about who I am at my core.
That's awesome. I got that. Well, what struck me, just like looking at the CV, hearing what you're up to, there's so many people that have done the job that you did. You're not the first person to sell tickets and promotion. You're not the last person. But I think what really speaks to, and like there is to duplicate, look at it, it's like, what brought that success? What brought that all-time record? What brought that? And of course, in sales, there's like a confidence part, and I'm sure we'll talk about the confidence. the mindset of it is so critical to win. So whether that's, winning on the field, winning off the field,
Absolutely.
the context that you set, and then in the work that you're doing now, just like helping people drive forward and win. So let's take a step back to that. When you did that retreat for yourself, you looked and it sounded like it just something shifted. So you went from extremely successful to, either different success or more success. And it sounded like it really had to like resonate with your being. So can you like take us back to that moment, and what was the aha moment for you that either shifted what you did or provided a new kind of perspective on what you're doing?
Absolutely. And I think everybody listening in, I believe there's an inside game and an outside game. But the way that society brings us up, the way that I was taught in my MBA program, the way that I really learned a lot of the entry to mid levels of my career was it's this external game of metrics and goals and success and trophies and accolades and achievements and working for the big blue chip brand. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with those things. But I think what's wrong is if you only focus on those things and you never figure out, does it actually matter to you? Does it mean something to you? Because you can crush goals in 10 different opportunities, and maybe one or two of them are just going to have a deeper purpose. You're going to feel like you're driving a greater impact and you're contributing more and you're helping more people and you're leaving people in places better than you found them. So, we could call those things fulfillment. You could call them happiness. You could call them joy. You could call them, I've said these words, purpose and impact. And really what I realized when I figured out who I am at my core, I realized that there was a little bit of a gap between my inside game and outside game. I realized that while I was winning a lot on the outside and the world is saying bravo, and my LinkedIn profile looks sexier and sexier by the day, week, and month. And the sports industry, it's just so attractive that people would never question why you do it. And that was part of the problem. I stopped asking myself, why am I doing this? Instead of just drifting on default, and in my case, climbing and growing and succeeding by default, what if I could live and lead and operate by design? So it was this shift from default to design. And at the retreat, I started to have not only my internal aha moments, but I started to create processes and systems, because I know we like to get tactical here on this show. And so for me, it wasn't just why and values, because if I stopped at those things, to a lot of folks, they can feel like a very distant North Star. And North Stars are great in blue skies. But then inevitably what happens is a storm strikes. You could call it, I don't know, March of 2020. And some big storm that's totally out of your control. It's an external market condition. It's an environmental thing, but it happens and it's real. And now you need to adapt and be agile and navigate. And my thought is, I think that we all lack resilience when we lack an inner purpose in why we do what we do. So instead of having a why and values as a distant North Star, I created processes and systems to make them behavioral. I started to connect those things to my daily decisions and daily actions. And I'm more than happy to share some of those processes. But really for me, it started with defining each core value. Then I created action statements. I started to journal, and I started to take big swings of the bat to prove to myself, okay, Paul, if your core values are growth, belief, authenticity, courage, and impact, well, don't just talk about it, be about it. Like, you have to take swings of the bat. You have to create these habits and rituals that basically reinforce, if this is who I am, then who I am needs to connect to what I stand for, and what I stand for needs to connect to how I show up. So it was this kind of internal compass. When I did my why coaching work, I basically said, all right, Anthony, core values, gotcha. That's who you are. Now, what do you stand for? And we would do some life reflection exercises. And then I would say, all right, now what are we going to do on Monday morning? And that's how you show up. But you have to source how you show up from who you are. Otherwise, it feels like you're living two separate lives. And that's where I found myself in the sports industry. I had a work Paul and a personal Paul. And once I made the commitment to become one Paul, that's where everything started to change.
Yeah. So like the internal alignment of you was critical. And,
Yep.
like I am very curious about the things that made a difference for at the time work, Paul, to be able for you to like hit those numbers, like make that success, like it didn't happen by accident. And I also hear that, while there was those kind of two Pauls, so to speak, that there was the foundation for your core values, for your why, for your mission, all of that stuff. It was there.
Mm-hmm.
And you going through the process of formalizing it, of committing to it and raising your own standard so that it wasn't like, it wasn't like a task or a wish or a thing. You're just like, hey, this is like the baseline. I was already performing great. Now I'm performing here and I'm performing more holistically for other people. And that helped you go and really like zone in on what was most important to you, in addition to performance in your job, but the like purpose piece, the people piece, and the like real heart of what makes you the leader that you are. Do I more or less have that?
Yeah, 100%. If I could summarize it, I didn't leave sports. I found myself. And when you find yourself, it's authenticity. I was lacking that, not because I was trying to not be authentic. I didn't have the data points of who I am. The retreat gave me the data points. And then these words that I then said, let me connect these values, which were the words, to my decisions, to my actions. That's when I found myself. So it was this gateway of authenticity that said, look, Paul, I'm going to bet on myself. I'm not going to stop crushing goals. I'm not going to stop winning trophies. I'm not going to stop achieving and being in a high performance space. But now I want to do it on my terms, because now I know who I am. I don't need to impress anybody. I don't need to be the biggest badass in sports. I need to be the biggest badass for myself. Like that's where that internal confidence came from, because I started to live on my terms. I cared about it more. And when you care more, you not only have more grit, capacity, determination, I think you also have more resilience, because to use a sporting metaphor, like life is going to knock us down. What's my motivation to get up? And when I don't care about something, I'm less inclined to get up. Sometimes I stay down, or sometimes it takes me forever to get up. But when I care, like as an entrepreneur, I get knocked down every day, week, month. But it's like the most temporary thing. I'm just like, okay, that happened. But this is my business, baby. Of course I'm going to get up. This is my calling. This is my mission. This is my purpose. And I think I never was saying things like that before. When I got knocked down, I was like, well, all right, there's a company and they pay you, and there's an industry, and there's a LinkedIn profile. And well, I want to do this for my team, but my care meter, like I always say, you can't coach care. You cannot coach care. And until you figure out who you are at your core, you're never going to max out on care.
Yeah, I hear that. And it's like your commitment to your personal mission, again, using strategic planning terms and just putting your heart on there. Okay, I want to ask you about Win Monday. I want to ask you about the book. Before I do, you put up numbers in the sporting world, like even prior to that. What would you say are the one or two things that you did that supported you in being able to accomplish like just like the pure results that you did in those sales roles and those executive roles?
For sure. A little bit of it starts with a saying that a lot of us have heard, but I think it's the application of the saying that matters more than the saying. The saying is control the controllables. So if you think about it, the market and external conditions, and I don't care whether it's a pandemic or it's rising interest rates or it's a turbulent economy, like all these external things are just uncontrollable factors. And for me, the way I was raised in business, I didn't have all of those things to deal with, but you know what I had? I had a lot of losses, meaning in 15 years of the industry, the teams I was a part of only made the playoffs once. So 14 out of 15 years, we had losing years. And I had nothing to do with that, right? Like I'm the business guy. I wasn't the one missing shots. I wasn't the one throwing bad passes, but I had to sell that. And I had to sell an experience, and I had to sell a team that had historically low demand. And so because of all these different things and walking through different fires, I said, all right, well, we got two choices. We could either become a part of the environment, which is negative and toxic, lacking hope, lacking optimism, and I could keep going, but that's kind of what was around. That's what fans were feeling. And then sometimes in the business world, that then you take those emotions into your own space. But I was like, no, we're not going to be about that. because it's too easy to just fall prisoner to that. And then you get a lot of victim mentalities. For me, I said, okay, well, what do we control? So here I am leading a sales team, and I'm responsible for hiring as well. So what I said was, my job is to hire the best talent. So I am after talents and gifts and skills. But what I'm going to require of every single person that I hire in a selling capacity, I said, I need three things from you: work ethic, positivity, and coachability. All three: work ethic, positivity, and coachability, 100% controllable. One, do you work your ass off? Two, never be negative, always be positive. And number three is 1% better every day. If you sold 10 widgets, how do we sell 11? If you sold 15, how do we sell 16? You sold 50. And so work ethic, positivity, and coachability, I created a constitution. Day one, you signed the constitution. I would show it to people as I'm interviewing them and say, like, if you're not in on this constitution, there's no 3 strikes and you're out. It's just 1 strike. Because if you don't put your hard hat on and you don't work and you're not positive and you're not coachable, you don't belong here. And I was very direct with people. And so I lost a lot of people before they even started. Thank God. But the right people joined the team and they dialed in. And what was crazy, Anthony, is a lot of people, because it was such a high pressure, high stress, high performing environment. And a lot of folks that already knew how the sports industry worked, they said, well, Paul, hold on, but you're hiring me for a sales capacity. And like, you're not putting pressure on me to hit goals. You're not putting pressure to perform. And I said, nope, that's my job. My job is to hire you for your gifts and skills, and your abilities and your talent. Your job is to work, to be positive, and to be coachable. And because of those things, I know it sounds very simple, but when you can be committed to something that you fully control and you create a culture around it and everybody rallies around it and there's no gray area around it, then at that point, if you hire the right people and they have the raw skill, man, you're going to dominate. And that's really like in those environments, if you ask me, like, what do we attribute our success to? We found very few things that were non-negotiable. We never had off days with those non-negotiable things. And we found the right people that believed in those things and wanted to be surrounded by those things, because now it was a tribe. Now culture became our competitive advantage. And now we weren't worried if the team won or lost on the field or the court or the ice. It was like, well, we got a job to do and we got careers to build and we have teammates to support and we have money to make. And like that's just kind of the mentality where it was very, work hard and play hard, but it's because we found people that cared about the same 3 things.
Yeah, you didn't have to worry about them hitting their numbers because the people that you were hiring, that intrinsic motivation was already there. They wanted to win. You just had to support them in doing that versus try to manufacture that out of them. I love that. So as we finish up, tell me a little bit about where do we start? Tell me about Win Monday in 1 minute or less. Win Monday. Why Win Monday?
It's separation season, like the same way that November, December, a lot of people take their foot off the gas. And I just say, look, you don't need to work harder in those months. Just be consistent. As hard as you worked in October, work that hard in November and December. And that's 2 months of separation. The same thing. The world focuses on, thank God it's Friday. I say attack Monday, because nobody is attacking Monday. And so I built a community around people, like-minded, like-hearted, that we win Monday. And that's where we separate from everybody else. And I think that's 52 opportunities a year for us to just grow and excel and become the best version of ourselves. And that's really what Winning Monday is all about.
Sweet. I love that. I love the idea of separation because it really pushes you through instead of like coasting to move that forward. Okay. 90 seconds or less. Better decisions faster. Why the book? What's the big takeaway?
100%. Well, for one, the worst decision is indecision. And we've all suffered at different points of our business, in our career, in our health, in our relationships, in our life, from paralysis. We stay on the sidelines. We succumb to stress and anxiety, and we never even swing the bat. And so for me, I wanted to solve for the problems of paralysis and indecision. But it wasn't just a book about making better decisions faster and having unshakable confidence when we need it most. It was also a process that changed my life. And I've been coaching it for years. And so here it is in 60 seconds or less. I call it the head, heart, hands equation. And for everyone listening, and this is how you make better decisions faster. So head is your mindset, heart is your authenticity, and hands are action. The equation is head plus heart equals hands. In other words, when deciding whether to use your hands, whether to take action, there's 2 checkpoints, head and heart. Head, do I think it's a good idea? Heart, do I feel it's a good idea? And just like when you're driving, you know exactly what to do at an intersection. Green is go, red is stop, yellow is assess. That's how the equation works. When your head and heart are on board, it's a green light, 10 out of 10 times take action. When there's no head, no heart, red light. Don't do it or stop doing it. And when one of the 2 is on board, head or heart, then it's a yellow light. And we got to solve for the gap. So I wrote the book to inspire a business and a career and a life of more green lights. I wrote the book to create awareness so we stop running reds. And I wrote the book because the yellow is the messy middle, and Better Decisions Faster is the playbook for how to conquer and navigate the messy middle of yellow.
That's awesome. I love that. I have heard head, hearts, hands somewhere. So hopefully I see that. Hopefully it was attributed to you, but I can't remember what it was. But I do like that uncomfortable middle. And I love running red lights, or well, avoiding running red lights. And I think all of this speaks to, so I know proper preparation prevents poor performance. And one of the things that I've been reading more and more about as we talk about confidence is the preparation. If you are prepared, you make the right decisions. And part of what I've heard today is the preparation is, hey, is my head and my heart, are they in line? If I'm walking in there, I can have the confidence that I'm making the right decision, that I'm either picking up the phone call, that I'm saying the tough thing because I'm super committed to what it is. And when we first started chatting, you were telling me about something that you have for our audience so they can, assess their own confidence and see, where they're at. You mind sharing that as we finish up?
Absolutely. And it's all at paulepsteinspeaks.com. Right there, main nav bar, you'll see confidence quiz. And in less than 5 minutes, you'll have your very own confidence score of 1 to 100. And here's what's cool. Everything I just described, the head, heart, hands, the green, yellow, red, it's all integrated into when we send you your confidence score. There's also going to be ways you can level up your confidence from that point going forward. So, okay, the head score, the heart score, the hand score, which one did you rank lowest in? Great, start there. That's the greatest area for improvement. And then move on to the next stage and the next stage. And so it's all integrated in Better Decisions Faster. But here's the parting words that I'll leave everybody with related to the quiz. Don't think of confidence as a light switch where it's either on or it's off. So I'm either confident or I'm not. Think of it as a dimmer switch. And a dimmer switch, like maybe your initial quiz is going to give you a score of 82, maybe a 91, maybe a 70, maybe a 48. All good. That's your score today. But just like a dimmer switch, +1, +2, +3, constant focus, repetition, discipline, practice. And inside of the report that we'll email you with your confidence score of 1 to 100, you'll have exactly what you can do to not only build unshakable confidence, but sustain it. And so just like a dimmer switch, we'll give you the score for today. And then you just kind of apply what's in the report. And then after that, off to the races you go. And again, it's all at paulepsteinspeaks.com. Hit the confidence quiz and you're 5 minutes away from having your very own confidence score.
Excellent. Paul, I appreciate you. Thanks for being on the podcast today. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for bringing your heart and your head to today's conversation, because I know you really just want people to win. And I appreciate you sharing your expertise in doing that.
Oh, thank you so much, Anthony. Just love being here, man.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Folks, my guest today, Paul Epstein. Find him at paulepsteinspeaks.com, the author of Better Decisions Faster. A couple things I really take away from today's conversation. Of course, continually trying to get a little bit better. Of course, hiring for values, making sure that you have the right people on the right team. But more than anything, making sure that there's alignment between where your head is at, your heart is at, and making sure that your people are all on a line so they can be their best. Confidence doesn't just get created. It doesn't just get disappear, but really check yourself for how you can elevate your own confidence, your own team's confidence to make the best out of today. And of course, win Monday to create that space. So thanks so much for being here, Paul. I appreciate it. Folks, thank you for listening. I appreciate you as an audience. I appreciate you as individuals. Holler at me. Next time you see on YouTube, just say what's up, and be sure to reach out to Paul to get that quiz. So once again, this has been the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. My guest today, Paul Epstein. My name's Anthony Taylor. Thanks for being here. I'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider giving us a review. We appreciate you listening and following along, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. And as Anthony says, until next time.